About 2.5 years ago, I made a video on an issue on the GTK GitLab. Consider dropping the X11 backend. It is not getting any better, and Wayland is widely available. At the same time, there was a Phoronix article on the same issue. When time comes for GTK 5, it might be Wayland only on Linux. Whether you think 2.5 years ago was the right time to have this discussion, whether you think it should have happened years before that, or it should be happening today, or maybe even like 5 years from now, at some point in the future, at some point across linear time, this discussion would have to happen. And in 2022, it was a bit more controversial than a change like that would be today. Yes, Wayland was absolutely usable back in 2022, but now it's a lot more so. A lot of issues that previously existed, like, all that NVIDIA stuff, basically just worked out. So there's a lot more people that are kind of just, maybe not happy, but accepting of Wayland. Now, even before it popped off from my video on the Phoronix article, there was already someone in here that had a bit of a concern. I am biased, but I think we are nowhere near that from an ecosystem point of view. Two major missing pieces. X11 should be gone or marginalized for the vast majority of desktop environments or GTK applications will be GNOME only. We're not going to do the libadwaiter rant again. We're not going to do the libadwaiter rant again. We're not going to do the libadwaiter rant again. All I will say is they are doing that themselves, even without getting rid of the X11 support. And the second issue here isn't really a GTK issue, it's a lot of compositors not having support for remote desktop functionality. This is obviously going back to the whole X11 forwarding, all that stuff, but that has nothing to do with GTK itself. Following this, we have a reply from Emmanuel Bussy. Before this issue becomes an unreadable dumping grounds of complaints about Wayland, the comments got locked shortly after that, before that could even happen. Again, if you want to rant about Wayland, you want to rant about X11, please do it in my comment section, please do it on Reddit, please do it in the Phoronix comment section. Don't go to, GitLabs where development is being done. That is not the place to go and rant about the thing you don't like. We are talking about GTK 5, which currently has no fixed release timeframe. Even at this stage, 2 years later, there isn't really a date when it's going to come out. We can guess based on when previous versions came out, like the gap between them, there's probably still maybe another 4 or 5 years of GTK 4, so it's not a problem to really be concerned about for a while. GTK provides the client side of Wayland, so it has nothing to do with how Wayland compositors work. And thirdly, extant issues of Wayland clients and compositors have no bearing with whether GTK 5 should drop the X11 backend. File bugs for toolkits, compositors, and the protocols. Also, gentle reminder that any Xlib-based code is tied with the current lack of maintenance status of X11. Not exactly true. There's 4 people that do it. Sometimes. And then there's a couple of weeks where nothing happens. But there's a couple of people that do a little bit of work. Mostly on Wayland. It's not a great state. Things are unlikely to improve on that side of the equation. If you want to ensure that the X11 backend in Toolkit still works, go and help the X11 project first. This is the problem that a lot of people have. They talk about how X11 is going to be here forever. I'm going to go help X11. I can look at the commit history. I can look at the issue tracker. Most people who say they're going to do it never go and do so. But even so, there was still a concern. It is definitely not GNOME/GTK's responsibility to ensure that LXDE, XFCE, Cinnamon, things like that have good support for Wayland clients. But as an application author, I would see it as a massive narrowing of focus for GTK if the toolkit only works in a handful of environments. So I would hope that GTK, as a Wayland/X11 client library, keeps an eye on the actual state of environments out there rather than what it would like things to be. In other words, that X11 support stays as long as a non-insignificant amount of users need it. Now, the issue here is treating GTK as if it's a Linux desktop toolkit. That's not what GTK is any longer. GTK is the GNOME toolkit. And if GNOME doesn't need something, look, it's probably not gonna be there in GTK. And this concern pretty much just got hand-waved away, as it's not a handful of environments, it covers 90% of the user base. I'm not doing this in another video. We're not doing this in another video. Let's just move on from that. Now, at the time, it was decided to not yet take the leap. When we discussed this issue at a recent GTK planning call, the outcome was we should stop building the X11 backend by default in GTK 5, and as long as we aren't doing any major GTK refactorings, keeping it around in the current state does not cost us much. If it's just going to be there and no one's going to touch it, and it's not hurting the Wayland support, is there any reason to actually get rid of it at this moment? Not really. So at the time, nothing had actually been done. It was kind of just left to sit there. But now, as of a few days ago, there is another merge request. C8060. Deprecate the X11 backend. This merge request deprecates all of the public X11 backend API to send a clear message that this backend is going away in GTK 5. Now pay very close attention to that wording. Deprecate. Deprecate does not mean it is being removed today. Deprecate just means you should not be using it anymore. If we go to the commits, the first one here, deprecate the X11 backend, if you pay attention, it is putting deprecation notices across every single file related to X11 and mentioning which version it is being deprecated in. This means the code will remain present in GTK at least for now until GTK 5, but it's really not recommended to use it, and being deprecated, it's very, 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 very unlikely that any further changes are going to be made unless something needs to be changed in it because it's getting in the way of the Wayland side. But this is the very first step that needs to be taken to effectively do a removal and do it in a way that's not going to disrupt all of the workflow around it, because there's still going to be a lot of applications that maybe don't rely on the X11 side, but users expect the X11 side to be there. So you want to give people time to port things, time to move over different toolkits, time to inform their users that this is going to happen. Keep in mind, this is not yet merged, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. Pretty much everyone in the project that I've spoken to treats it as deprecated anyway, so this would just be officially putting the label on there. So with this, another discussion needs to be opened up once again, because again, GTK is the GNOME toolkit, and when something happens in GTK, it needs to be dealt with on that side as well. What do you do with GNOME? Do you keep the X11 side around, or is it getting time to actually remove that? So, about 4 months ago, there was this: allow to disable X11 related bits, making it so you can actually build GNOME with the X11 side disabled, because previously, that was just not part of the build script. And a bit earlier than that, there were these two pull requests. Remove X11 session targets, which, as you can see, a lot of people have left their opinions on. Along with this, remove X11 session code. So this would be removing the build target, so you couldn't actually compile saying, I want the X11 version, and then this is removing the X11 code entirely. As you can see, both of these still sit open, and at least from my understanding, yep, nothing here and nothing on this one here. The discussions have not yet opened up once again. I am sure there are discussions being had in Matrix channels and private chats and things like that, but at least publicly, nothing is being done yet to decide, okay, do we drop X11 from GNOME now? Do we wait a couple more releases? Do we wait until GTK 5? When is this going to happen? Because this is going to happen. At this stage, GTK 5 will not have X11 support, so it's going to happen then. But is it going to happen before that point? That is the real question. And this has been discussed extensively in the distros as well. So you may recall that whole discussion about KDE possibly dropping the X11 side in Fedora. Well, the same discussion was also happening over on the GNOME side as well. Also, up in Rel 10, which right now is currently in beta, and will be released sometime mid this year, 2025, that is fully dropping Xorg as well. Obviously, Wayland is still going to be there, but the X11 session, not going to be there. This will happen in the upstream project. It is just a matter of when. And back to the Deprecate PR, a very good point was made. I wonder if this needs a blog post with a longer explanation, and linking to it from the commit message, or at least having a much longer commit message explaining the why. Or if people are aware why we are doing this. Sure, I'll expand the commit message, but I don't feel like this is blog post material. Now, we will have a look at that in just a moment, but I disagree like the replier here. It depends on the impact, really, and it's hard to judge how the community is going to react to this. If it's a controversial thing, having a blog post to easily link people to is helpful. Linking to a GitLab commit message always feels awkward, but if it's largely uncontroversial, then that isn't needed and can be put into a commit message. Honestly, I think any big change like this, having more explanation on why you are doing it is a good thing. And this is a problem that a lot of projects seem to have, where they will do things and then forget that they aren't making software just for themselves. They are making software for a community, and the community is going to respond. And the problem is, if you don't explain why you're doing something, people are gonna make shit up, and people are gonna fill in the gaps themselves. The difference in this case, though, is nobody even realizes this PR was made. I haven't seen anybody else talking about this. I actually think this might be the first video on the topic. So here is that commit message. This sends a clear message that the X11 backend is going away. All internal callers have been updated to ignore the deprecations. The reasons why we want to drop the X11 backend in GTK 5 are: there is much less need to keep X11 support on the client side compared to the server side, which is covered with Wayland. The backend code is only very sporadically maintained, and nobody wants to add new features to it. It adds another column to our platform support matrix, and some of the cases are complicated, such as Vulkan / X11 or EGL versus GLX with its visual complications. And even if GTK 5 loses its X11 backend, your GTK 4 applications will still have it. And your GTK 3 applications, and those couple of GTK 2 applications that might still happen to be floating around out there. Obviously, GIMP is GTK 2 right now. That's going to stop soon-ish. Now, there hasn't been much in the way of further comments on this thread. There was one here about some CI stuff, but that's not really that important. But the one I want to talk about is this one at the bottom. Please forgive me for my ignorance, as I'm quite unfamiliar with the accessibility situation in GTK and to a large extent GNOME on Wayland. Will it negatively impact accessibility, Orca, etc.? I think it'd be important to cover accessibility if there will be a blog post. My understanding is things today are kind of in like a iffy, kind of okay state for things like screen readers, but a lot of other accessibility stuff that people want just isn't really there yet. However, as I said, this is being deprecated, not yet removed. And if by the time GTK 5 is coming out, the accessibility problem has not been resolved, well, I think this whole Wayland experiment has been a complete and utter failure. There is like 4 or 5 years until that's actually going to happen. Surely by then, the majority of problems are going to be dealt with. But what do you think? Do you think it's time to deprecate the X11 side in GTK? Do you think it's time to just straight up remove it? And what do you think is going to happen in desktops like GNOME? I would love to know. So if you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to LiberaPay, link in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and the mental blank. I got nothing this time.
something like this.